Hi, this is Rekha, and I'm Gabby. Join us all summer long as we're on the hunt for local businesses and amazing hidden gems in our beautiful cities of Edmonton and Fort McMurray, which this totally isn't. Tune in, because this is RNG in the 780.
Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us again. As always, this is Gabby, the G in RNG in the 780, and we have a great episode for you today. Today, I'm joined by none other than Dr. Geneva Fung from Ambleside Optometry. Dr. Fung, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me today.
I am excited to chat with you about optometry, but also feel a little bit guilty because I have not gone to see my eye doctor in a hot minute, and I feel like they would be very upset with me. But hopefully, with the information that we get from you today, folks will feel a lot less pressured or let go of the kind of ego and perhaps come in and visit. One of the things I wanted to ask is that I always had this perception that every time I've gone for an eye exam, I've gotten results of like 20/20 vision. Mind you, it's been a hot minute, but is that the kind of is it almost ignorance to just think that just because you get that kind of 20/20, everything is okay, or is there more to it than just having 20/20? Is there more to kind of like eye health than most folks know about?
There's much more to your vision than just 20/20 vision, because we also have to take into account your eye health too. So just because you can see 20/20 doesn't mean you don't have an underlying eye disease, right? So eye diseases can be inherited. So things like glaucoma, generally there's a family history. There tends to be more of a genetic component to it, but you can also go on to develop eye disease even without a family history. So routine care is really, really important. We want to see healthy adults once every 2 years. If you're a contact lens wearer, you should be seen yearly. Children and seniors need to be seen yearly. So eye care is definitely not something to skimp out on. It's something that a lot of people think, oh, you know what, I see 20/20, I don't need to go see the eye doctor, I'm good, right? But I have had cases where patients are 20/20, but you see an underlying eye issue, and then all of a sudden it just becomes a lot more of a scary visit. So routine care, when we can talk about prevention, is very, very important.
Awesome. I definitely failed the one that you said every 2 years?
Every 2 years, yeah.
Oof. Okay, so it's been a hot minute. What is something that you typically find your patients are like shocked to learn about, or you feel like the general public doesn't really know about kind of eye health that kind of just goes whoosh?
I think a lot of people don't realize how closely your eye health ties into your overall health. So, for example, I have patients who are diabetic and don't come in for routine care, and then all of a sudden they come in for that eye exam and we look inside their eyes and there's something called diabetic retinopathy. So that is very, very important, and a lot of times when I go over like scans or photos that I take of a patient's eyes, they don't realize how intricate and detailed the eye actually is. So I mean, your eye is really, really small, but there's a lot that can go wrong with the eyes, right? So things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, all of that can impact your eye health.
No, totally. We're just being joined here by, is it Marcus? So if you see him running around, he's just excited. I wanted to ask you, because I kind of didn't know this, but while we were kind of doing like a pre-interview, I was learning very much that you kind of started with Ambleside, is it 3 years ago?
Yes, about 2.5 years ago.
Years
so
ago.
we started construction about 3 years ago.
Okay.
I have been an optometrist now for 11 years.
Oh wow, that's well done.
Yeah, it's been a while.
That's amazing. No, I hope that I can feel that you love it. And usually when folks are like, I've been at it for this much, I'm like, they say it so far with a sense of pride and like, this is what I want to do. So I hope that's the case as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I love what I do. I just kind of worked in different clinics, different modalities. I did corporate optometry, I did private optometry, I did non-dispensing optometry, and it gave me a really good idea of what I liked about optometry and what I didn't. And so over the years, it just kind of culminated in Ambleside Family Optometry. We're called Ambleside Family Optometry because family is very, very important to me. And I believe in providing care for the entire family. And, you know, I think about how I want to be treated as a patient.
Oh,
And,
just getting a friend in there. No worries.
I think about how I want to be treated as a patient, and if I don't get the detailed care that I'm looking for, I'm really not buying into the treatment plan. And so I treat all my patients the same way, as I want them to truly understand why I need to see them on a routine basis, and they walk out with a very, very good understanding of why I do what I do and why I'm trying to get them to do what I need them to do.
Okay, no, that's fantastic and great. Did you originally kind of feel, as you were kind of going through your career path, that family optometry is the one that you liked the most? Because you said you'd worked in, there was various other ones kind of before that, and you gravitated. When did you kind of realize this was one of the fields that you were like the most excited about?
I think from the time that I entered optometry in general, I always knew that I loved working with kids, and therefore it's just a really easy transition to be working with the whole family. You know, to do what I do, and having done it for, you know, a good period of time, I do have patients who have kind of followed me around as I went to different clinics. And so to grow with these patients, I think is very, very rewarding. And that's why I really decided to cater more towards families versus focusing on different specialties, whether it's vision therapy, you know, eye disease. Some doctors like to do just eye disease, and you know, like I do a little bit of everything, but family is just what's most important to me, and then therefore it just makes sense that my business reflects that as well.
No, that's wonderful. I'm just wondering, because we kind of had a little chat about how you had said you should kind of, oh, we're getting another little visitor there. You were talking about how if folks were looking to get into optometry, that one of the best methods is to contact an optometrist and kind of shadow them for the day. If people were looking to do that, what's the best method that you found that should they just directly contact you? What's the best way to do so?
Before I entered optometry school, what I did was I just approached a few different doctors, and eventually I did find one who was willing to have me shadow him. And so the requirements for optometry school have changed a little bit over the last, you know, 10, 15 years since I've applied. But they do want you to spend some time with an optometrist so that you understand exactly what it is that an optometrist does. Because I think, you know, sometimes we have this kind of this pre-built idea in our head of what an optometrist does, and really a lot of what we do is not as glamorous as what it seems. And so to get a really good idea of what it's like to be in a clinic all day is a very good indicator of whether or not the profession is for you. But yeah, like, just if you have an optometrist, just approach your optometrist, right? Otherwise you just go and find a couple clinics maybe in your area that's easy for you to get to, and then just see, right? Because not all optometrists are comfortable mentoring somebody, but also some are just too busy to have an extra body in the office, right? So especially over the last couple of years with COVID precautions, I've only allowed really one student to shadow me over the last 2.5 years.
Oh wow, lucky. See, like, yeah, you got in. I wanted to ask you some things that I'm hoping to demystify, if that's okay. One of the biggest things, I remember, like, I film outside of this, and we had a set where I had to kind of set some lights to what's called 5,000 Kelvin or daylight. So on camera, they appear kind of in a bluish hue. One of the folks that I had there was like, oh my gosh, these are blue. I have to put on these anti-blue glasses for the rest of the set. And I was like, I don't know if this like directly affects me, but I was a little bit like, surely with all of us having worked around on set for years, this can't be as you know, damaging as it is. Otherwise, like, I'm like, am I in danger? Should I have the glasses that he has on right now? Sort of deal. Is the blue light that is not directly from sunlight actually proven or shown to be harmful to
No.
the eye? Oh, wow, there it is. Yeah.
That's a simple answer.
Yeah.
Blue light really has been overhyped, I think, since these blue light filters came out. And the reason for that was we kind of lumped blue spectrum white light all together. And the reality is that we have high energy white light and we also have low energy white light. High energy white light is what is more damaging to our eyes, and that is what comes from the sun. So our blue light filters don't filter out that high energy blue light.
Oh.
Our blue light filters filter out low energy blue light. So it's light that comes from our phones, our iPads, our computers, our, you know, our 5,000 Kelvin lighting. You know, that inherently is not proven to be damaging to the eyes. However, it can cause something, we just kind of use our umbrella term, which is computer vision syndrome. So it can cause things like headaches, eye strain, tired eyes, even a little bit of dry eye. Blue light filters for some patients can improve the comfort of the eyes, but other patients will try it, like for myself, makes no difference.
Oh.
So it's really, I find it's highly individual because the science really doesn't support a blue light filter. But some people, you know, because we work in front of a computer screen all day, just feel more comfortable with that blue light filter. And so if that's the case, you know, if you feel better having it, and sometimes it's also psychological too. So if you feel better having it versus not having it, then go ahead and you know, add it into your glasses. But I would say always be cautious that you're not being overcharged for blue light filters. Because it's big business, right?
Oh, well, I imagine that it had to have some, like, but again, like, I'm an optometrist, so I wasn't going to say anything, but when they were like quickly throwing on their glasses and off, and I was like, am I in trouble here? Or like, you know, so I thought I'd always ask, and I've always wanted to ask it just to, oh, another visitor there, just to wonder and see. You'd mentioned, sorry, it was computer
vision syndrome.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that usually, is it for folks like me who sit in front of a computer for 12 hours editing at a given time? Like what's the best, I know that some people have told me every kind of hour or so, they try to kind of walk away, not look at the screen, and look at like the outdoors or something just to reduce that strain. Is that a good practice, or what's?
Yeah, so it's called visual hygiene. It's the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds.
Oh.
It is what optometrists in general will recommend to our patients to help prevent eye strain, headaches, you know, those types of symptoms. Again, there actually isn't solid evidence that supports visual hygiene, but we do know the more breaks your eyes get, the less likely you are to have issues related to your focusing or having blurry vision because you've been staring at your computer screen a little bit too long, things like that. So visual hygiene, even though, again, there's no strong evidence behind it, is highly recommended.
Okay. No, that's fantastic to know, because I was always like, what are methods to kind of do this? Because, yeah, in so many fields of work that you're stuck in front of a screen, and it's like, am I just doomed to eventually, you know, everything hurts and I have to get used to this eye strain, or is there something that I can possibly do to prevent it? You had also mentioned that you specifically try to cater to or have products and brands in your specific family optometry clinic that are sustainable and that you feel aren't big, is it corp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, I think about what I would want as a consumer, and I feel that as a whole, we do need to move to more sustainable products. And so what I've done in the office here is I have sourced a few lines that are sustainable. We have one company that makes a few different lines of product, and they use bio-based materials. They use recycled metals. They also use recycled ocean plastics, which is quite amazing. So they like literally go into the ocean and they pull all these like plastics out. and they, through a process, a processing system, they actually break down all these plastics into a remoldable plastic. So it's actually really, really neat what some of these companies are doing and their innovations and all the research that goes into it. And there are other companies too that are very large, where basically how they operate is by taking over known brands.
Oh, okay.
So the issue that with some of these larger companies, they're these like international conglomerates, and so they own the lens company, they also own the frame company, and because they own such a large portion of the market, they get more control over how things are priced, the quality, things like that. And what I've really found is that those types of companies are also less likely to support independent optometry. And so I did make a conscious effort not to work with those companies. I prefer to work with smaller companies that will in turn support us as well.
Okay. That's very interesting, because I feel like I just learned a whole bunch of things. What is kind of an indicator, like, I don't obviously want you to like name brands here or throw anyone under the bus, but what are indicators if folks are going to go get kind of, that they should kind of avoid? Are there certain frames that are kind of made not the best practices, or kind of like what should we like kind of look to avoid?
I think the reality is that unless you're in the industry, unfortunately you can pick up a frame, and I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference between a good quality frame and a poor quality frame unless they feel vastly different.
Okay.
And I think that is part of my mission, is making sure every patient who comes in really understands why we carry what we carry, why we provide you the product that we choose to. So I think the easiest thing to do is ask questions. When you go in, if you have a clinic, you go in and be like, okay, so if you're interested in something that's more sustainable, you can ask your clinic, do you have a line that is more sustainable? And hopefully they do. If not, then that's really, as consumers, you speak with your dollars, right? So if you have a specific product or specific, cause that you want to support, then you would have to spend a little bit more effort and go seek those things out. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to glasses, a lot of people just want something that they look good in, that they feel good in, and so some people don't necessarily care as much about it, and that's okay. Okay. Right? Because at the end of the day, what's important is that if you need glasses, you got to wear your glasses.
So that's great. But it's always like bizarre in that, like, I do, and I feel like some folks at home will also have the same feel, like you want to go for things that are sustainable, because the idea of having kind of larger organizations govern everything for more the sake of profit than for your health is kind of odd, and it's a bizarre mixture to kind of have, and something that like, it's like I don't want to put it on the back burner, but at the same time I'd like to focus on not doing that. Maybe, like you said, vote with your dollar, kind of where you spend it and what you buy. What is the typical like procedure for someone? Is it a preference thing, or do you sometimes say, no, contact lenses are not the way for you, you should look at glasses?
Sorry,
no worries.
Yeah.
Just
yeah, go build your Lego. Sorry.
No, it's hey, it's a family optometry, right? Wouldn't be that if we didn't have so always wonderful to see.
So contact lenses are a good supplement to glasses, but they are never a replacement for glasses. That's how I kind of sell contacts to my patients, is that, let's say you have a super high prescription, maybe you're like a -5 or you're a -6, and you can see like here without your glasses, and so inherently those glasses are a little bit heavier, and some people don't like the way they look because of those thicker, heavier glasses, and they just like, not having anything on the face. The contacts, again, are a good complement to glasses, but it's not something that you can live in 24/7. There are contacts that have been approved by Health Canada that they say you can wear them 24/7 for like 30 days at a time, but as optometrists, we tend to see more complications related to that type of contact lens use. So we can see infections, ulcers, red eyes, things like that, and so I don't typically recommend it. But depending on what your lifestyle needs are, there's so many different contact lens options out on the market now that you're almost guaranteed to find something for you. There are, I would say, a very, very small number of patients who are not good contact lens candidates.
Oh, wow. That's good to know. Again, ignorance. So learning a whole bunch today that kind of like I had no kind of idea or grasp. I did also want to ask for kind of the educational route. Typically, I know that things do change year to year, but what is kind of an expected timeline for folks to get into optometry? How do you kind of begin and end up, and is it like, I don't want to say the years there because everyone's just so focused on that, but like in today's kind of fast-paced world, everyone's kind of focused on like time invested in to output. So if someone is looking into the field, what is a typical timeline to kind of expect from starting to?
A total of 8 years.
8 years.
Some people will put in more time. So pretty much every optometry program available in Canada and the US will require a bachelor's degree. Some schools will allow you to enter after your third year, but you have to complete your bachelor's degree while you're pursuing your doctorate in optometry as well. So I would say the majority of incoming optometry students have already completed a degree of some kind, and then you go to your optometry school, complete your doctorate in optometry, and then you have the optional residency as well. So some optometrists will have a special interest in, say, like eye disease, or some want to be able to fit specialty contact lenses, or some will have an interest in binocular vision, vision therapy, pediatrics, things like that. So you have the option to apply to a residency program to just kind of get additional, more specific training. However, right now in Canada, we don't have any kind of legislation that allows us to call ourselves specialists in any specific area of optometry.
Oh, really?
So we're all optometrists, but I can have, so for myself, I have a special interest in myopia management, but other optometrists will have a special interest in vision therapy, things like that. There are some changes in the works. So they're working on implementing a program that allows optometrists to have a specialty, but that is probably a good 4 or 5 years down the road.
Okay, no, that's wealth of information. I'm learning so much. I did have to ask your thoughts on kind of like LASIK. I know that so many folks. It's good? Yes? Okay, great, wonderful. Next question. No, I know that there's always like, are the fears for getting LASIK warranted, or is that percentile like smaller? Because so many times I've heard from folks when they Google it, there's that fear that like something will go wrong. Like originally when I heard about it as a kid, I thought it was to get laser eyes, but you know what? Here we are. I've learned much more. But like I know that some folks are like hesitant. So would you say that like, yes, there's always, I know you'll say this as a doctor, there's always chances for things to perhaps, not go the way you planned. But are those chances much slimmer than folks envision, or much higher than they seem to think?
Laser eye surgery is something I talk about probably on a daily basis, usually multiple times a day. Laser eye surgery is inherently safe. It has been around over 30 years now. And the technology that surgeons use to perform a procedure is very, very good. There are always risks, right? At the end of the day, it's a surgical procedure, so there's always a risk of complication. It is very low, and as long as you follow the post-operative care instructions, the chances of you having something bad happening are very low. I would say at the end of the day, as with contact lenses, laser eye surgery is not for everybody. If it's something that you're interested in, the best thing to do is go for a consultation. Consultations are free, and they do lots of in-depth testing to determine whether or not you're a good candidate, and they will be honest with you. They will tell you if you're not a good candidate.
Okay.
And I think, as with most things, if you don't have a good experience, you're more likely to hear about a person who doesn't have a good experience versus a person who does. I'm post LASIK.
Oh,
So,
wow, that makes sense why the answer was yes. No.
yeah, so I mean, as an optometrist, if I didn't think that procedure was safe, I wouldn't be having it, right? So,
Okay.
and it was something that I thought about for a very long time as well before I decided to proceed with it.
Okay, fantastic. So on the scale of everything, and just so I understand it, because learning, the best methodology to go about is to kind of get prescription glasses, contacts to supplement, or if you have the pockets to do the LASIK end of things, to go for LASIK, or would you advise, hey, if you have, like kind of having glasses is the best method to having absolutely nothing and doing nothing for your eye care? What's the kind of tier system you would say? No, it's all good. He's fantastic and super, much more calm than, folks that we've had were like, hey, so we might have to have them leave because they're screaming and everything. So always happy to have that. I will take that any day over kind of screaming like, I can't do this. This is coming into the audio, and yeah, please. No, that's, yeah, so sorry. I was saying kind of, is it kind of preferred to have like glasses and kind of supplement with contacts, or should folks kind of, if you have the money, go for LASIK?
I think LASIK is not for everyone.
Okay.
There are lots of people who like the way they look in glasses and don't mind wearing glasses and aren't bothered by the occasional, day of contact lens wear, things like that. But if you're one of those people who's like, oh, you know what, like I just don't like the way I look in glasses. I hate my glasses because they're always really heavy. I don't like dealing with the contacts. I don't like, buying solution, and I'm always down to my last pair and I forget to order more, that type of thing. It's more of a lifestyle choice, I would say. I find that people who tend to lean toward LASIK have more active lifestyles where maybe wearing glasses or contacts can be inconvenient. But yeah, I would say the majority of patients are happy in glasses and contacts.
No, and it obviously certainly seems like it. I mean, you have been operating and doing well, I would assume, throughout kind of, actually I was gonna ask that. How were things more of a mess and difficult during the pandemic to kind of see patients? Because I would assume, like as much as you could try to Zoom meet with folks, probably not the best way to try to get information from your doctor, right?
It's been challenging for sure, because we opened in January 2020 and the pandemic hit just a couple months after.
Okay.
And so to build a business, to build a clinic over that period of time has had its challenges for sure. Teleoptometry actually wasn't introduced in Alberta until after the pandemic started.
Oh.
And even then, there are certain criteria that have to be met in order for you to be able to provide care through teleoptometry. I personally don't provide teleoptometry care because as you said, if you take a picture of your eye and send it to me, it's not enough detail for me to make an accurate diagnosis. But after our mandated closure, so I think it was about 6 weeks where optometrists had to be closed except for providing emergency care. Once we were allowed to reopen, the Alberta College of Optometrists, working with the province of Alberta, did put in guidelines so that we could provide care safely.
Oh, good.
So there are certain guidelines in place that everybody had to have like certain protections in place before we were actually allowed to reopen, and those were things like having our protective barriers at the front. Everybody had to be masked, sanitizing and disinfecting all like hard touch surfaces in between patients, things like that. Now that we're 2 years into the pandemic, really the only precautions that are mandated to be in place is disinfecting in between each patient, However, because I have young families who come in, and having a young child myself, there are a lot of precautions that I choose to take just to keep everybody safer. So those are things like continuously masking for myself and my staff, having HEPA filters in all of our rooms, disinfecting surfaces that are not necessarily required to be disinfected, but we do have additional precautions in place.
That's
I guess
awesome.
we'll just have a guest
Yeah.
for the last little
Guest,
bit.
special guest,
Gabby,
Marcus.
can you please introduce us?
Yes. This is Marcus.
Marcus, yeah.
Yeah, he's our special guest for the day. You may have seen some appearances here and there, but he's finally decided to make an appearance. How are you doing, Marcus? Perfect. Wonderful. Love it. Love to see it and to hear it. Dr. Fung, would it be possible to kind of let me know, like, when a patient or prospective patient comes in through the door, what are kind of things that they should expect, like procedure-wise? What would they kind of go through as they come in?
So for every new patient that comes in, we always get their Alberta Healthcare card. We use that as their unique identifier. It's easier than us giving each patient an individual ID that can change, right? Your Alberta Healthcare number will always stay the same. We always ask for insurance, right? Because keep in mind that a lot of people who work full-time will have private insurance that pays for their eye care, because unfortunately is not covered as part of our universal health care. And then we get some kind of basic information, and once they've checked in at the front, then we take them into preliminary testing. So in pre-testing, we do simple tests like checking for color deficiencies, making sure patient has depth perception, because those can be indicators of underlying health issues, eye issues, or genetic issue. And then we do something called an autorefractor, which gives us an estimate of roughly what your glasses prescription may be. Our machine also will take additional measurements, like it can do something called a corneal topography, which also screens for eye conditions. And then we also take photos and scans of the eyes. Once the pre-test is done, then my optometric assistant or my optician will also walk you into the exam room, and then that's when I come in. So once all the pre-test has been done, I always review it, look at the data, and then if you have glasses, contacts, we enter all of that into the system too. And then in the exam room, then I go over comprehensive case history, ask about pre-existing health issues, medications, family history, things like that. And then we'll go in to do some kind of basic like visual skill testing. We check the vision, we check the prescription, I compare it to your existing glasses if you have glasses. We talk about contact lens options if you're interested. If you're happy in your current contacts, then we kind of have that discussion too. Do you want to stay in them? Do you want to try something different? And then the most important part is really the eye health assessment. So we look at, the entire eye. We look at the cornea, the lens of the eye, the retina of the eye, and we're looking to screen out, numerous diseases. And then once all of that's done, we kind of sit down, have a conversation about like the results of the overall exam. And then from there, if you need to purchase new glasses, then you can do that. If you need to order contacts, you can do that too.
Okay, so you had mentioned that because optometry isn't covered by universal healthcare, does that mean that if I wanted to go to a certain optometrist, I could pick whichever one I wanted, or do I have to get a referral from anyone?
No, so you can see any optometrist you want. So let's say you've been with the same optometrist for years, and for whatever reason you moved, or you decide, you know what, I don't like that optometrist anymore, and you wanted to go to a new one, you just go to a new one. The nice thing is that with most patients, because we're healthy, we tend to not have eye disease, to not have that history is actually okay, I would say, for the majority of patients. But there are ways to obtain your previous records should we ever need it, and it's fairly easy. All we require is a signature from you. So to have continuity of care, if that's important to you, is actually a really simple procedure too.
Perfect, great, because I was just wondering if, say there were someone out there who maybe hadn't seen their eye doctor for quite a long time, could they just walk in and go, hey, let's see what you can see here, because I maybe things are looking a bit fuzzier, but further away and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm able to just walk in and say, look, I've been a bad adult, haven't taken care of my eye care, and come in, and there isn't, okay, perfect. Is there a period of time where you would kind of recommend to go, like, if I hadn't done something like 10 years or something, you'd be like, hey, I need you to maybe get some blood work or something, because now I'm really concerned because you haven't done any sort of exams or seen anyone? Or is that super rare?
I would say it's pretty rare. Like if I see something inside your eye that is concerning to me, I always try to keep your GP in the loop. So
Okay.
I know finding a family physician right now can be difficult, but I always try to work with the family physicians to coordinate the blood work. I can order blood work for you should I ever need to. However, I don't feel that I'm the best person to kind of hold on to those results, because it's useful for your family physician to have access to those results too. So my preference would be for your family physician to order the blood work, because I have access to Netcare. So I can look at the results of your blood work should I need to, but it's for someone who hasn't had an eye exam, recently, and to see something like really bad going on with the eyes, I'd say the chances are pretty low.
Okay, perfect, no worries. Are we able to have me kind of dummy run through what that would be like with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Just a few seconds to get things prepped. All right, folks, and we're back. Dr. Fung is going to walk me through some procedures to give you an idea of like what you can kind of expect should you come through the doors. Hopefully you will. Drop her name. But yeah, she's going to take me through what's one of the first kind of things.
Perfect, good. So usually what we do is we start with our pre-test. So
Okay.
come on in, you can have a seat in the black chair there.
Nice. Okay.
So usually what we do is we start with like a depth perception test, our color vision test that we talked about already, and then we'll move on to this machine, which is called our autorefractor. So if you want to pop your head in there, Gabby, what it's going to do is it's just going to auto align with your eyes. So head nice and straight, chin all the way forward. Yep, perfect. And then what it's going to do is it's going to look for your eye, and it can't find your eye right now.
Oh no, it's worse than I thought.
So, maybe okay, forehead all the way forward. And where is your eye?
Fine, your eyes.
Oh, that's right. It's way too low.
Ooh.
So you should see a hot air balloon. Oh, I see it, I see it.
There we go.
Hey. Hey.
That's so cool.
Oh. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're just gonna stare straight ahead at that hot air balloon. It's gonna come in and out of focus. So as the machine comes in and out of focus, what it's gonna do is it measures your autorefraction data, it measures your keratometry data, which is the shape of your eye, and it also measures something called aberrometry data. So how light focuses into your eye and causes like glare, starbursting, haloing, that type of thing. Perfect, okay, and then it's gonna automatically switch over to your left. So you're gonna stay nice and still, and it'll find your left eye. Perfect, and you can sit back.
Ooh.
Good.
That was really cool. Although I did have notes of thinking it was gonna send brainwashing signals into my head, but it didn't. But it was good. The balloon was pretty.
Yeah. And then the next step, we usually use the machine behind you. So what that machine does is it takes a photo of your retina, and then it also takes a scan of your macula. So macula is where we get our detailed central vision and 20/20 vision. So that one, we are looking for any signs of potential eye disease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the last thing we do is we use this little fancy probe here.
Ooh.
And what that does is it measures the pressures in your eyes. So you know how some people really hate the air puff test?
I was just gonna say that is my least favorite part, but I imagine shy of making my optometrist laugh, there has to be an actual reason behind it. What is
So the air puff test measures your eye pressures, your intraocular pressure. So it's very similar to measuring a blood pressure. There's a range of normal, and anything that is higher than normal can indicate risk of glaucoma. So we always measure your eye pressure every time you come in. The eye puff was kind of the old school way of doing it, because it just looks at how that little air puff, it shoots out, and then how it rebounds back into a sensor is how it actually measures your eye pressure. So this one uses a probe instead, and the probe, although it sounds scary, is actually much more comfortable. So you really barely feel it. It feels like somebody just touched your eyelashes, and it gives us actually quite an accurate eye pressure reading.
Oh, so it's much more accurate than the puffer, so, or yes or no?
They tend to be more accurate, yeah, but there are some air puffs that are actually quite accurate too.
Okay, because I would have to say the times where I did do eye exams from what I recollect, it just felt like I'm like, is this actually doing anything, or is my optometrist just laughing at me every time I go, like when they would puff into there. So good to know that that is what it's for, and that there is actually a scientific reason behind it, because I never knew that. So just to layman's term, everything here, this one was used to kind of measure how quickly my eyes can kind of focus in and out of
No,
this.
so what it does is it gives us an idea of what your prescription is.
Oh.
Yeah, so it gives us an estimate of your prescription, so that's why the hot air balloon kind of comes in and out of focus. And then on the screen, you would have seen there's rings that are being projected onto your eyes, and that's how we measure our topography and our aberrometry.
Oh.
Yeah, so it gives us some extra data versus some of the other hot air balloon machines that might be in other clinics.
Okay, so now that Rekha has taken video of that, can that be used for biometrics? And now I've been hacked. Thanks a lot, Rekha. No, okay, beautiful. No,
I will become Gabby.
that's right. Perfect. So after we do kind of all of those, what's
then
next?
we proceed into the exam room.
Ooh. Ooh.
So then you get to have a seat in the big black chair there. And then what I do is I pop on these big glasses here, which in my case is automated, but at your last eye exam, you probably remember like your optometrist kind of clicking all these little wheels. So the difference is just that mine's automated, so I control it with the iPad.
Oh, I didn't know you could. Oh, that's...
Yeah, so what it does is, if it'll load up here for me really quick, actually. Actually, no, it won't load up. It didn't fire it up.
That's fine. No worries. Question only because I'm always in this chair side of things.
Yeah.
Is it generally bad and or just not? Because in my head sometimes I don't remember when I was going like better 1 or 2, and I was like 1, 2. After a while I'm like, I think they're both the same. I really can't tell much of a difference. Like you have to give me an answer 1 or 2, and I was like 2. Like I don't know. Like, is it okay to say I can't tell the difference, or do you have to always say
no?
Okay.
So if I can tell that you're struggling to make a decision, I will then throw in there, does it look the same? And if you say it's the same, then that's okay. Because some patients are much more visually sensitive than others. So some people will always be able to pick one over the other. But when we get really close to your prescription, they'll look very, very similar. And that's okay.
Ah, got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So a follow-up question, do you sometimes trick patients and 1 and 2 are the same?
No.
Never. Okay, so they're always different.
Yeah. They're always different.
Cool. Good to know. I don't know, like, it's bizarre. I feel like maybe this is my skepticism, but sometimes they've just been so very close that I'm like, I feel like my optometrist is just like har. But no, it's always kind of and is, like you said, it's because some patients are kind of more visually receptive than others. So that doesn't necessarily indicate that like something is amiss.
No, everybody's brain is wired a little bit differently. And so because of that, some people will notice those tiny little differences and they'll feel like it's a big difference, versus other people are just less visually sensitive. And so you can pop like a big change in front of their eyes and be like, oh, it looks almost exactly the same, which is fine. So that's where, everybody is just a little bit different.
Wonderful. No, I got some questions I've always wanted to ask. have to wait there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then after we check your glasses prescription, then this is the most important part. This is my biomicroscope.
Okay.
And so I use this to look at your eyes under anywhere between 10 and 40 times magnification.
Oh, wow.
And so it looks at all the different eye structures in your eyes, and that's how we screen for eye disease. So we look from the cornea, the front of the eye, all the way into the back of the retina. And so that's how we look for, whether it's an inherited disease or just something you've developed over time. There's been incidences where, I'll look at the eye and there's like a scar on the eye, and I'll ask the patient, I'm like, oh, how did you know that? And sometimes minor eye injuries do leave behind scars. Or sometimes, you even forget that you had one, and sometimes you don't even know where you got it.
A question that I've kind of always wanted to ask, only because I used to do kind of more martial arts, and sometimes some folks would end up with concussions per se. Would you advise folks to come in and see you after a concussion? Because I know the very first thing paramedics do is, as soon as they show up there, is light in eyes and try to. Would that be recommended heavily?
Post-concussion syndrome is a thing.
Okay.
And in some cases, it can impact your eye focusing ability, your eye teaming ability.
Okay.
And if you are experiencing symptoms like that, then yes, it's a very good idea to come in for an assessment.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that's very good. Good to know. I was going to ask what the kind of light does, but that might be above my need to know.
The light is just looking at your pupillary reflexes.
Okay.
And so based on how your pupils constrict and dilate in reaction to a bright light can be an indicator of something more serious going on in your brain if your pupils don't react as expected.
Did not know that either. So I'm learning so much here.
I have a light right here if you wanted to test that.
That's okay. I'm fine. I hopefully won't be concussed throughout this process. And then where do we go from here?
And then we go back out into the front.
Oh, nice. Do.
So once we complete the eye exam, then you have the option to purchase glasses should you need it, contact lenses should you need it, and otherwise, if you're good, then we take your money and then you're on your way.
I love that process. That was so great and on to the point because, that's fantastic. So question for you, is it my likeness or kind of, do you know what best frames fit individuals? Hi, Marcus.
Good job.
Well done. Are you like, hey, you should probably avoid kind of round ones, you should do, like, do you know what's best, or should I know what's best?
It's our job to know.
Oh, okay.
So not my job specifically. That's what opticians are for.
Okay.
Opticians are trained specifically in knowing lens types and helping you find a frame. And then once you've found the frame, adjusting the frame to make sure it fits your face. So a good optician will be able to look at your face and be like, okay, Gabby, you should pick this shape frame, not this shape frame. And then there might be certain colors that will work better for you based on complexion, eye color, things like that. But it is not your job to know.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, if you're just going into a store and like nobody's helping you, then it's one of those things where it's just trial and error. You just try on a bunch of different frames and see what you like, what you don't like. But a good optician will be able to look at you, and I would say within probably 3 pairs of glasses, as long as you know what you like and what you don't like, be able to help you find what it is that you want.
Okay. That's good, because I have watched my brother have to do so, and he was told, grab whatever jumps at you. And I was like, that can't possibly be the method.
No, but there will be things that catch your eye, because
Okay.
I will say that to a patient too. If my staff is busy, I will always jump in and help out. And I actually say that to the patient too. Is there anything here that catches your eye? Because it really helps us to narrow down what your options are. So for example, in my clinic here, we have over 600 frames. You don't have all day to try on 600 frames, right?
Don't we though? But yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
We might not have the time to, hang out
Okay.
with you while you try on all 600 frames. So that's how, by asking the right questions, it really helps to narrow down your choices. And because some people get overwhelmed by choice too. I've had patients where it's like they have 3 frames. They're like, oh my goodness, how do I choose between these 3? And it's like, wow, 1, 2, or 3. Which one do you like, right? Versus other patients will want to try on like 10 or 15 or 20 different frames to make sure they've tried on all their different options. But at the end of the day, yeah, I would say most people have a pretty good idea of what they look good in, what they don't look good in. And if you don't, generally what we do is we give you 2 totally different styles, and then usually you lean one way or the other, and it really helps us guide you in picking your frame.
Okay, and would you kind of recommend to have like a pair for professionalism, a pair to go out, and a pair of sunglasses? Is that the best?
I think you should always have a good clear pair of glasses and always a good pair of sunglasses.
Okay.
That fun pair, up to you.
Ah, okay. So not necessarily needed.
Some people like it though. I have patients who will have like 4 or 5 different pairs of glasses because they want different styles, different colors, things like that.
No, and I imagine it must also like kind of go with your outfit if you're going out and stuff like that. So you don't always want to wear the ones that you have. Oh, okay, yeah. Rekha's pointing to herself. Yeah.
You always need lots of different choices.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I do find the majority of men just want one pair. They like to keep it simple.
I'm noticing we're very, like, I don't want to generalize here, but I'm noticing, like, for a vast majority of my friends, it was interesting in that the method where they got to go to see an eye doctor was, and this is a terrible story to share, but I will share it. I was driving with a friend of mine who was like, "What's the speed limit here?" And I was like, "We just passed the sign that said it." And he was like, "I couldn't tell if that was 70 or 80. And I was like, "Because it was covered?" And he's like, "No, I couldn't read it." And I was like, "You've been driving us for half an hour. Maybe I'll drive us." Jeez. And then sure enough, we kind of pulled him aside and said, "Hey, maybe just humor us. Go get an eye exam. Come back." And he's like, "Yeah, I am super," is it nearsighted where you can't see far?
Yeah, nearsighted.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm super nearsighted." And I was like, "Yeah, no, we figured because yikes." But yeah, as soon as he went there, he got the one pair, and that was, and he wore it 24/7, and eventually was like, "Oh, you know what? I like this style and this," and adapted. But
Yeah.
we're very much. Would you say statistically, we come in the least out of any group?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not. Putting on. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no processing required.
All I
It was
have
like
to do is think about what my day looks like, and I
Yeah.
would say the majority would be moms and kids, and then
Okay.
dads definitely come in the least. And then single men usually is they just started dating somebody, and then the girlfriend is telling them to come in.
That's so interesting because those are the other stories where they're like, "My girlfriend thinks I'm blind." I'm like, "Was she right?" Like, "Oh, she's pretty close." Turns out I need glasses. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's very fascinating."
Yeah.
What advice would you give, say, that particular group? Would you say just come in, swallow your ego, and because eye care is important, or?
I don't think it's actually an ego thing. I think it's a taking care of yourself thing. It's self-care, right? Because what I usually tell my patients is that coming in for that routine eye exam, even if you feel you don't need it, is preventative care. Because the thing with the eyes is that they're small, right? They're 25 millimeters on average long.
Oh, interesting.
But they have, over 100 million nerves per eye, and that's why there are, 2 different doctors who look specifically at your eyes, right? Optometrists and ophthalmologists. And the thing with the eyes is that when something happens, I would say the majority of the time it's irreversible.
Oh.
So, when it comes to eye disease, there's no cure for the majority of eye diseases that are out there. We can help you manage it, we can help you treat it, we can help you with your symptoms, but we can't cure you once you develop an eye disease. And so it is really about taking care of yourself, because you only have 2 eyes. We can't transplant another eye for you. So if you can't see, and all of a sudden, your lifestyle, your quality of life really goes down. So taking care of your eyes is very, very important.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I guess take that, sci-fi. We don't have transplants for eyes yet. And yeah, to take care of kind of your vision. One thing I feel I want to ask, this might be like a super ignorant question, but I'm going to ask it anyways, is we did this kind of in high school where there are folks that can perceive a broader spectrum of colors. And typically it was called supervision, but I don't know if it was remotely supervision. But it was folks that could see kind of better hues of color. And the test that they did for it was they aligned a bunch of colors that seemed almost identical, but apparently there was minor differences between each shade. Is that pseudoscience, or is there some system to it that, like, there are folks that can see colors better than others?
I think it goes back to the sensitivity thing, is that
Okay.
I think that some people are wired a little bit differently, and that they are more sensitive to different hues versus others. The only scientific test that's out there that sounds similar to what you're talking about is something called the D15.
Okay.
And so what the D15 is, it actually ranges from about green to purple, and the colors are just slightly different. And that actually helps us diagnose different types of color deficiencies.
Oh.
So someone who is red-green colorblind, based on if you have a mild color deficiency or a severe deficiency, will line up those colors in actually very specific ways. So there's specific patterns that we can look for.
Okay, I had no idea. I always just, I don't know why, ignorantly assumed the test was that dots one where there's a number in there.
Yeah.
If you can't see the number, then you can't see that color?
Yeah, that's the screening test.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the screening test, but then there are more sensitive tests should we ever need to do them.
Okay, and are there, for color deficiencies, has the science improved where there are glasses that can compensate for the lack of that color?
There are.
Okay.
So if you're mildly color deficient, there are special glasses out on the market. They are relatively expensive, but basically, I actually haven't handled a pair in person,
Okay.
but I've read about them. So basically how it works is you go to the manufacturer's website, and they will actually put you through like kind of a virtual color test to help determine if you have a mild color deficiency or a severe color deficiency. If you have a mild deficiency, those glasses will work for you, but if you have a severe deficiency, they don't.
Is there anything to help aid a severe deficiency yet? Or, okay,
No.
that, okay, goes back to our preventative kind of eye care thing of
Well,
going
it's
to see.
genetics, right?
Okay.
Because whether or not you have a color deficiency, and then whether or not it's severe or mild, is all in your genetics. So you thank your mom and dad for those genes.
Oh, thanks a lot, Mom and Dad. No, I was just more thinking, I don't know why, like, this might be ignorant thoughts here, but like, that if it was mild and they went to go get some proper eye care, it could remain mild, but that doesn't.
No, color deficiencies are there from the time that you're born, and they typically do not change over time.
Okay. Well, no, that, I feel like I've answered all the questions I've ever really wanted, and this has been very enlightening, because so much of the stuff that I thought I knew nothing. And now I know a bit more. I'm definitely going to come by and see a professional and definitely go through the eye exam, because, yeah, even when you had the balloon in there, I was like, wow, it's a nice balloon. And then it shifted, and I was like, oh, that's more in focus. I should probably look into that. Because I bet you the 20/20 thing has not remained from 6 years ago.
There were some numbers on there, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Check the live stream.
Okay, well, folks at home, if you check you got to witness me get an eye exam almost live, so enjoy that. But Dr. Fung, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for walking us through and giving us the
My
procedure.
pleasure.
You are so calm, and the data and information, everything, like, there is no bull. You were very direct with some of the questions, maybe too direct with some of them, but it's like you were ready and you get them the day to day, and I can tell just from sitting there and chatting with you that you really care about your patients and their overall eye health and health in general. So thank you once again. Before we let you go,
Yes.
what is the best place for folks to contact you, follow you, and then hours?
So you can contact us via email. It's info@amblesideoptometry.com. Our phone number is 780-752-5588. And right now we're open Tuesdays through Saturdays. Thursdays are a late night, so we're open 11 to 7. And then Saturdays we're open 9 to 3. On Instagram, we are Ambleside Family Optometry. And same thing on Facebook.
Wonderful. And your address to come visit?
Our address is 16224 Ellerslie Road Southwest in Edmonton.
Beautiful. No, that's fantastic. I do have to say to the folks at home, thank you for tuning in. This is going to be a little bittersweet because this was our last episode of RNG in the 780. As always, this has been R. I have been Gabby. And thank you folks for watching, and have a good one.
Hi guys, this is R from RNG in the 780 coming at you. We are today talking to Peter from Pitt County BBQ. Peter, can you please let the audience know who you are and what you do?
Hi everybody, I'm Peter Zakuski from Pitt County BBQ. I specialize in regionality barbecue here in Edmonton, Alberta. So what that means is I focus predominantly on North Carolina whole hog style barbecue. So we'll bring the cooker to events and we will cook a whole pig in the North Carolina fashion and then serve it for catering events.
Awesome. And can you tell people a little bit more about what it means to do like Carolina fashion? Like where do you get the pig and is there anything special that people really need to understand about that?
Yeah. So for North Carolina barbecue, it is predominantly broken into two regionalities in North Carolina. So there's east and there's west. So east is usually whole hog, west is usually shoulders. So something about North Carolina barbecue that's different is that it's pulled and chopped rather than just pulled. And for the most part, instead of a barbecue sauce, there's a vinegar sauce added to it. So it bounces really nice with the smoky fattiness of the pork and just complements itself really nice. So when it comes to barbecue, there's a lot of regionality, whether it's Texas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, North or South Carolina. So when I'm focusing on North Carolina barbecue, it's the whole hog. So we'll get it from a local producer, Real Deal Meats in the city, and then we will actually take the pig and we'll split it down the spine. So we spatchcock it or splay it open, which is a fashion that they do down there. And then we'll cook it, pull it, chop it, add the vinegar sauce, and then we'll serve it. So one thing about the chopping that makes it interesting is you actually get a more concise bite. So a lot of the times if you're having pulled pork, you'll put it on a sandwich, you'll take a bite, it'll fall on your lap because it's all intertwined. But with the chop, you actually get a nice clean bite of the sandwich or even just the meat itself. And the flavor is second to none.
Awesome. And how did you kind of decide on the style of barbecue that you have decided on?
So for this, I've always been into cooking. About 8 years ago, I did an entire lamb over my fire pit in my backyard. And then the next year, I was wondering what I should do. So beef is too expensive. I'm not a huge fan of goat. So I thought I would try a pig. So I had a bunch of cinder blocks and I made a cinder block pit after doing some Googling, and it turned out really, really well. So then I started cooking the pigs in this fashion for friends and family and stags, just closer friends, and then figured out that it was a North Carolina style cooking this way. So when I found that out, then I took some time. I've been down to the state 3 times, worked at a few places down there. I've eaten at 32 barbecue places.
Holy crap.
I've done about 4,500 kilometers around the state, driving to check out places. So once I found out that I was doing it in a fashion like this, then I just went down the rabbit hole and then just honed it in. And really, I mean, for me, the flavor is just second to none. You can kind of smell the residual smell from the cooker. So there's just nothing like it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So how did you kind of like plan your trip? Was it just like, here's the list, let's smash it out, or word of mouth? What kind of things did you do?
There's a lot of resources out there. There's a podcast called the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, which is really, really good. There's a few books, one called The One True Q. Holy Smoke is another one focusing on the regionality of North Carolina barbecue. So in reading those ones, you kind of can figure out which ones come up more and which ones have heritage. One of the places I worked in last time has been open for 92 years. So it's fourth generation ownership now, and his great grandfather was one of the more prevalent people in the Western style of North Carolina barbecue. So there's a lot of lineage and history in North Carolina. I mean, everybody thinks kind of barbecue's Texas, but again, there's a lot of regionality within barbecue.
Yeah, I recently this year actually went to Texas and had barbecue, and it was insane. Like we like between three of us girls, we could not finish all of the food because there was so much. And when we had told them, like, the hospitality is like there is nothing like it really. But when we told them that it was our first time ever really like trying a barbecue place, they're like, and you have to try this, and you have to try that, and you have to try this. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. But the portions were huge. The food was like fresh.
Yeah.
Like the beans, we had like green beans and some like mashed potatoes, and we had, of course, what's the bread called again? But we had cornbread.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. Absolutely delicious. But yeah, so like what are your favorite ways to plate like a barbecue?
For me, again, like when I'm going down there and I'm doing these research trips, I take a lot of time to try and learn the history, talk to people, really assess the menus as well, just kind of see what are consistent staples. So there's things that I've brought back up that I like doing. So for example, sweet potato pie, which personally I like better than pumpkin pie.
Oh my gosh, sweet potato pie is delicious.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe it's the fact that we've been eating pumpkin pie our entire lives and it's just something different. But the main staples when we're doing our catering is we'll have the pork, we'll do beans, mac and cheese, coleslaw, and then upon request we'll do cornbread as well. So the coleslaw that we do, again, is a regional. So even though we do the pork in an Eastern fashion, we do the coleslaw in a Western fashion, which is a red coleslaw.
Okay. What makes it red?
Ketchup.
Oh.
Actually.
Oh, okay.
So it's green cabbage, nothing but green cabbage, ketchup, apple cider vinegar, and then spices. So sugar, salt, pepper, and it balances the pork really, really nice. So coming up here and putting it on the plate, or presenting it, everybody is always a little thrown off because it is visually different. But then when they try it, it's a nice, sweet, vinegary, peppery component that works really well with the pork. So after the fact, everybody's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Oh yeah.
But initially they're like ketchup and coleslaw, because everybody's just used to either like a vinegar base or like a white base as well. So it is a little bit different, but for me, it's really important for me to showcase the Southern regionality. When I was starting, a lot of people kind of found it weird, but my main focal point for marketing, branding, and everything was North Carolina. The reason for that being I wanted to be as authentic as possible to what I was doing. So my rationale was, if I'm targeting the market down there, not for events obviously, but just branding and content wise, and I was getting the response from the locals, then I thought it would take care of itself up here, because I would know that I was being authentic and that I was being supported by the people that I'm trying to represent. So even Pitt County BBQ, Pitt County is a county in North Carolina where one of the more prevalent barbecue establishments, Skylight Inn, is, and that for me is like the gold star, like the benchmark barbecue for North Carolina style. So I wanted to, again, pay respect to the culture, pay respect to the history. It's one of the earlier states as well, so it does have a lot of food culture within it. Not a lot of people in Canada, which is fair. I mean, we don't have the information for it, but a lot of North American food comes from that eastern seaboard, whether it's like Boston and Maine or Atlanta, Georgia, and kind of all along that. It's where everybody came from the settlers, and then it just kind of went across to the west. So it's been fun, but it's important for me to kind of carry the torch and continue the legacy of what's being done down there. I'm not really reinventing the wheel by any means.
No, I mean, if it works, it works. There's no reason to change it necessarily. But it's awesome to bring something like that with so much history, so much culture, and bring it to Canada, because for me, I don't think I'm really familiar with a lot of like barbecue places in Alberta itself. Culturally for me, because I'm half Filipino, it's a lot of like, it's lechon, so it's like, you know, the roast pig over like a fire, right? But it's not by any means very like North American style. So when I went to try it in Texas, it was a completely different ball game.
It's way different, and that's one thing as a country to Canadian barbecue culture is a little bit different. We don't have the history, we don't have the lineage that there is in the States. So a lot of Canadian barbecue culture is competition barbecue culture, which we do get from the American culture as well. But the Canadian competition barbecue culture is actually quite established in Canada. So the community that they've built and everything else that they have around it is really nice to see. I mean, we've got Barbecue on the Bow, Pork Palooza. There's events across the country, and really that's where the Canadian barbecue culture has started from and has kept going from. So as more regionality is being appreciated down south, then you're getting more places up here doing specific regionality, whether it's North Carolina or Texas, or really focusing on the fact that it is like Indian food, or it is like Chinese food or Mexican food, where there's the provincial regionality of the cuisine, whether it's Cantonese, Szechuan, Hunan, or a multitude of other ones from regionality. So it's nice to see that even though it's been so long, that a lot of establishments or people like myself are taking these heritages and these cultures and foodways and trying to showcase them in a way to broaden the horizons of what barbecue is for people.
Oh, right. Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about like where you see Pitt County BBQ kind of going? Like what's like the long-term goal here?
The short, long-term goal right now is to build up on the catering that we've been doing. Mm-hmm. Eventually, more than likely a restaurant somewhere in the future. But right now, just really want to build the base that I've built. For me, we'll do the 100-person events, but I really like the 20 to 30 because it allows me to interact with people. It allows me to showcase what we're doing, educate on the techniques and why we're doing it, why I think it's important. So the smaller groups for me I really like because it allows me to do that. So I'm building another cooker. It's a smaller version. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to expand my current operation, keep going on it. This summer as well, we worked with the Old Red Barn in Leduc to create a program called Farm to Flame. So it's live fire cooking, long table dinners, elevated menus. So for me, I want to be able to continue broadcasting the North Carolina barbecue, as well as just live fire cooking and barbecue culture in Canada and Alberta and Edmonton as a whole. And if and when the restaurant comes, it'll come at the right time. And right now it's just a means of enjoying still what I'm doing and finding a way to make a living at it.
Nice, that's awesome. What kind of events do you guys normally do?
So predominantly, there's not a one avenue focus of what we do. A lot of the times it's family reunions, birthday parties, stags, corporate events. We get such a vast array of different events that it's really hard to pigeonhole ourselves into one, but we get a lot of people just wanting a pig roast. So that also allows me to kind of educate on the style of barbecue that we're doing, because a lot of the time we'll show up, one, nobody's seen a cooker like this, and then two, with the pig splayed instead of on a spit. In Canada, traditionally a pig roast, if it's not lechon, it is usually on a spit. So everybody's always a little thrown off initially, and then I can educate and explain why it's different. So I really like the more personal events, but the larger ones are also fun because then I can expand to a larger audience as well. So it's really diverse from personal events to corporate events. When we got started, it was a lot of stags, but now with the rise of barbecue, we're getting a lot more diverse events, which is nice to see.
That's awesome. Is that like throughout the whole year, or is that very seasonal for you?
It tends to be seasonal. I say that apprehensively because we have cooked. Last year I had an event in December, it was December 17th, and it was minus 42.
Oh my God, no.
So that was a little bit much. The year previous I was working with a friend from Cornerstone Barbecue, and we were doing something called the Alberta Barbecue Collective. So we were working out of a facility, and we were doing frozen prepackaged items. So instead of events, we were doing kind of takeaway commercial vac pack items. So throughout that year, we cooked throughout the entire year. So with that, it was days of minus 10 to days of minus 35. Predominantly, I like working in warmer temperatures. The colder temperatures aren't the greatest. I ended up designing and having this unit built. So as I was mentioning before, I used to use cinder blocks, and I used this cinder block design with an aesthetical design from North Carolina to kind of merge the two. So it has worked in plus 35 and it's worked in minus 42.
Wow.
So the residual steel, once it heats up, kind of acts as an oven, and it's a giant, more or less charcoal oven. So it took about an hour and a half to heat up in minus 42 compared to 20 minutes to half an hour.
Yeah.
But once it got up to temp, then it rode that 275, 300 until the meat was ready. So we can do it throughout the year. There's a little bit of a price increase due to the colder temperatures.
Yeah. The risk of exposure, you know?
Yeah. So it's something that's the biggest crux when it comes to barbecue in Canada. I mean, on the flip side, down south right now, it's ridiculously humid, ridiculously hot, and you're in a pit room, and it's like very dangerously warm from the fires and the ambient heat. So that's what they struggle with. It's a little bit cooler in their winters, but then for us, we go from plus 35 to minus 40, and it's finding that range. So that's why a lot of barbecue in Canada as well will use commercial units that are indoor units. Which totally makes sense. So those can be electric, they can be gas fired. Not a lot of them are live fire wood unless it's contained properly. So that's something different, where in the States, as you might have seen going to Texas, a lot of the cookers are outside, or they have these style of cookers, which is, that's the crux, because if I opened a place, that's what I would want to have, is the ability to actually still use this, showcase this, even do it in the minus 40 days. But it's working with the city for permitting, for one, and then two, weather is the biggest issue.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I mean, like when I went to one of the barbecue houses, it was like this giant, like it had its own building almost. Like if you can imagine what, let's say like a giant conservatory for plants are, it was like a giant conservatory for like barbecues. And you could walk through. I saw people like get up and finish their food, and they would just walk through with a glass of beer, you know, like you're walking through the gardens. And I'm like, are we allowed in here? And people were like, yeah, come on in. I was like, are you serious? We could just walk through. I felt really intimidated because I didn't want to like get in anyone's way. But it was so cool to be able to experience walking through and seeing with your own eyes all these people like tending to like all this meat, and it was amazing. Just a huge space.
Well, and that's one of the fun things that I like about the South and the Southern barbecue culture, is it is very open. So whether it's sharing tips or tricks, a lot of people are open outside of the fine details of recipes. And that's just because all of us just want the culture to expand and grow. So I would definitely recommend to, if anybody watching is going down to the South, whether it is Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, the Carolinas, if you are an enthusiast and you are interested, just ask the staff if you can see the pit room. I mean, I think truthfully, out of the 32 places I've gone, I haven't asked to see every pit room, but out of the majority that I've asked, there's only been one place that politely declined for me to actually see it. So once you go in there, again, you can meet with the pit masters, you can see how they're doing it. Again, for the most part, everybody is a pretty open book with showcasing it, because we just want to showcase the love of what we're doing and help expand what we're doing. So I definitely recommend, if you are traveling in the States and you are interested, to definitely ask, because more times than not, they'll take you back there and kind of show you something that you just can't see up here, and it's definitely worthwhile seeing.
All right, so I think that with that, we should maybe take a look at this barbecue that Peter has designed. So we will take a little pause here, and we'll be right back to show you. Thanks. Hi guys, we are back with Peter again from Pitt County BBQ, and we're looking at the barbecue that he made himself. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, we started using cinder blocks. So how that would work is we would make a cinder block pit every time we would do a job. So that, again, was not commercial. We didn't have the company. We were doing it just for family and friends. But that entailed moving 60 plus cinder blocks a time. So I would have 60 cinder blocks on the side of my garage, would load them into my truck, take them to site, offload them, build the pit, cook the animal, and reverse. So when I wanted to extrapolate what I was doing and take it to the next level and make it more commercial and build the actual company, I needed something more portable. So that's, again, how I took the dimensions of the pit that I was using, and then the aesthetical designs of a manufacturer down south called BQ Grills. So last time I was down there, I met with the owner. He toured me through the facility. Once again, the barbecue culture is just really amazing, where people are transparent. I mean, he knew who I was. He knew that I had somewhat emulated their cookers, and was still more than happy to tour me through his entire his entire facility, just to help. So it gets called a coffin quite a bit, which is funny. I mean, it does look like one, but it is a glorified charcoal oven. So one other aspect of North Carolina barbecue that is different, that adds a lot of the flavor, is its direct coal cooking. So instead of having it offset, or like a Texas offset where it's just cycling through, what happens is actually we put the animal over top and the coals underneath, and then as it's cooking, that fat, those juices are rendering out, they're hitting the coals, that's coming back up as smoke, and that's infusing the meat. So you're getting a very unique flavor profile, which you can kind of smell again from the cooker. So it's a little difficult to emulate what we're doing. But again, if you have a lot of cinder blocks and you Google it, it's not impossible. The cooker itself is just under 800 pounds. So when we had it going at the start, the lid is about 178. So I was deadlifting the lid pretty much every single time.
Whoa.
It was a point of pride where I had to stay in shape to make sure I could actually lift it properly. The problem with that is after repetitive use, my body was taking a toll, so I actually added assisted openers on it, which drastically helps. So the nice thing, again, it is heavy, but the thickness of the steel in cooking in those colder temperatures of -30, -40 allows it to build up the heat retention and then radiate the heat. So what we'll actually do is we use charcoal briquettes or lump charcoal, and we'll pull out the coal grease tray and we'll add more as we're going. So today we don't have anything on here, but we just have some, for lack of a better term, show coals. So it's not the exact setting that we do have, but the nice thing is we can pull it out, we can add the coals without actually lifting the cooker. So then without that, we can retain a lot of the heat within it. So we have the ability to use a steel, heat it up. One funny thing about cooking it in -42 is when I go back down to North Carolina this fall, with Celsius and Fahrenheit, that's a somewhat breaking point. So other times I can say, oh, it's +30 or -30, and they don't fully understand. But now this time I can go back and say, no, I cooked a pig in minus 42, and they'll be like, what is that in Fahrenheit? You're like, it's minus 40. And they'll understand the cross comparison and also probably think I'm crazy. But it was a means of proving to one, I had a job, and two, it was a means of proving to myself that I could do it. It was so cold that paper didn't want to light. And it did take about an hour and a half to get the actual charcoal lit and everything going. But once, I said earlier, once that did happen, then it was cruising. So we built it with the vents on the top so you can kind of control the temperature loosely with how big or how small you open up the flues. And then, as you saw, we have the coal trays on the side. So we'll undo the locks just to let a little bit of air in there. And then what we do is we have the hinge straps to keep it tight. But then we have a 4 foot by 5 foot cooking area to cook on. So the most that we've had on here has been 3 50-pound pigs. The other alternative is we had 9 shoulders, 3 briskets, 2 beef plates, and 275 chicken wings. So it's very, very versatile. When I started, again, marketing and targeting the North Carolina market, I got a lot of comments and messages commenting on the size of the pigs that I was doing, because down south they'll do from about 120 to 180. So the fact that I'm doing a 50-pound pig, a lot of people initially criticized me for, just because it is so small. The problem with that is, again, we don't have the culture. The events that I'm doing are about 30 people. So it's hard to cook a 150-pound pig for 30 people, because even for a 50-pound pig for 30 people, there's leftovers. And it's also duration. So last year we had a few corporate events for a corporate client, and they had 90 to 110 people, but they didn't want us cooking overnight at their facility. So then again, we're at about an hour and a quarter per 10 pounds. So if we're looking at a 50-pound pig, we're 5 to 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
So if we do 3 50-pound pigs, we're at 5 to 6 hours for 150 pounds compared to 15 to 18 hours for a single 150-pound pig. So for us, it is that balance of finding that sweet spot. We don't have any issues doing the larger pigs of 80, 100, 110, but it's based upon the volume of the events that we have. And again, the duration of, can we be there and can we cook there for 18 hours, or do we need to extrapolate that down to 5 to 6? So on those corporate events, it was a lunch, and the lunches, it was 11:30 service. So I was up at 3 getting everything ready and there with a coals lit at 4 to make sure that everything was cooked in time for lunch service. So it's for the love of the game. I mean, doing it this way without commercial units where you can set the temps and leave it overnight. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It helps the functionality of what we're all doing, especially in our climate. But there's a lot of work into it. So in a few weeks, we're going down to Calgary for Brewery and the Beast, which is like a food and wine festival, but for beer, music, and fire cooking. So we'll be cooking 2 80-pound pigs in the cinder block method again. So we'll be there on the Sunday at 1:30 in the morning to make sure that those are ready for service at 1 to 5.
Oh, wow.
So
then how do you facilitate having, like, do you have then a team of you? Do you do shifts? How do you do that?
Large in part, hence the chairs. It's just myself, and it's a lot of time, a lot of labor, and a lot of alone time, which is funny in a sense, because again, when you're waking up at 3 and then you're cooking to 11, I mean, people aren't really getting up until 7, so you've got like 4 or 5 hours of sitting there, contemplative thinking or reading or listening to music or podcasts. So you get really accustomed to spending a lot of time by yourself, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it also allows you to really focus on what's happening, learn the cooker, learn the process, and learn kind of everything around it. So it's something where, again, the guys down south, they'll do those 18 to 15 hour cooks. So they'll be cooking through the night. They'll have multi shifts. They'll have multi people coming. But yeah, if you go down there, when I think it was 4 a.m. when I worked at Stamey's this last time. So then I was there at 4, we got the shoulders on, and then that was for lunch service too. So it's just something that you get used to again with like Franklin Barbecue and Snow's. They're there the day before, making sure that the food is ready for everybody the next day.
Oh, wow. And then how do you like accommodate all the different meats? Like you just lay it all at the same time then? Or is this like, do you maybe even bring out another grill for different meats? Yeah,
slight different durations. So if we're doing a pig, usually if it's just one pig, we'll put it lengthwise and then we'll put the coals underneath. When we had the shoulders and the chicken wings and everything else, it's just staggering of times.
Okay.
So briskets take a lot longer, depending on the size of the pig. Chicken wings with a lot of coals, they don't take very long. So sometimes we'll use commercial smokers as well for the briskets, and then we'll finish them on here. But predominantly it's just a pig cooker. So we can do the other meats, and we have done the other meats, but the vast majority of jobs that we do is the pig. So when we've done the 3, they kind of stagger where it's like 1, 2, and 3. And then, the larger ones, we can go all the way up to that like 150, 180 if we have that demand for it. And it's one of those things too where I find it funny because it's one of those things when it comes to our food systems and everything else that people don't like thinking about. But in theory, a younger pig is technically a better pig. In the context of all of that too.
Yeah.
So it is something where, again, the scalability of it, the smallest we can go is 35, which we don't like going because we find that too young. So usually our cutoff point is about 50 pounds and up. But yeah, we can do the 50 all the way up, and again, multiples are a big one, and it really is about the spectacle and the show of what we're doing and the smell and everything else. So.
Well, it's a giant stage on its own, really. Like it's huge. What's the biggest pig you've ever put in this one?
On this one, it was, I think, 110 pounds.
110 pounds.
On this. Wow. So we have cross flat bars to add reinforcement. And then, once again, the temperatures get up, we just control the fire and the coals, and then it's just time.
Oh, wow.
So that is, again, around like 10 to 12 hours for like minimum. Wow. Depending on how hot the cooker is, and again, fat content, meat structure of the animal. Every animal is different.
Totally.
Again, we can do the same process for every animal, but sometimes they come out and they taste phenomenal, and then sometimes they taste good.
Okay.
So there's whatever it is about the animal. Again, like the process doesn't change, but just sometimes we get one that's like beyond amazing, and then everyone else is good. So when I went down for the first time to North Carolina, I just wanted to kind of suss it out. The second time, I really wanted to make sure that what I was doing was comfortable and in line with what's being down there. So I was really focusing on the meat. And personally, I feel like if I took my sandwich and went down to North Carolina, people would ask what barbecue joint it's from rather than what is this.
Okay.
So to the point where I've done a few events up here now, and I think there's been 3 or 4 different times of people from North Carolina that have come and they said, like, this reminds me of home, or this reminds me of like a church picnic, or it's just really familiar. So to me, those are the comments, and those are the things that even online I'll get like DMs from people sending me pictures of their cooker or thanking me for continuing the legacy of what's been done down there. And to me, whether it's magazine articles or the Food Network or whatever, quite honestly, like I get more validation from those kind of things because I'm really trying to continue and pass the torch on of something that isn't overly well known. I mean, when you tell people like North Carolina barbecue, they're like, it has a culture.
Idea.
So for me, it's super important. I've got a lot of friends in the industry down there now. Last time I was down there, I was on the North Carolina Food and Beverage podcast. So it's just being able to continue the legacy of what the people before me were doing, and yeah, to me it's just really important. So I get a lot more validation from that and those comments than other things. Because again, like I said, when I started, I was really trying to target down there. So.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Now you mentioned earlier about what it was like kind of cooking in the winter time.
Yeah.
So what was the coldest?
Minus 42.
Minus 42s. And you were out here basically by the grill the whole time, basically.
Yes.
Like in and out,
so,
probably,
yeah.
to keep alive.
So in and out. The cooker, not in those temperatures, but the cookers it gets pretty warm, so you can get close to it, and it residually keeps you warm. But it is something in those temperatures where you're making sure everything is good, running back inside to keep warm, going back outside. So I found a timing cycle where I could set an alarm and look at the cooker from inside outside and then know when to come back out and add more coals. And it was a process. It was the first few hours I was sitting out there with multiple layers just to make sure everything was going properly, and then after a few hours I was able to go inside outside. So I ended up throwing out my back for about 2 months after the cook, just because sitting on hard plastic in minus 42 is not the best for your body.
No, definitely not. And then trying to keep it warm too, constantly. Was that before or after you got these assisted?
Luckily that was after. The assisted openers I've had for years now. It was just the first few months when I had the cooker when I was like, I don't need it. I'll be okay. Just a stupid guy. And then realized, oh, maybe I should actually take care of myself.
Yeah, so you can continue to do this.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. What was that like? Like, did it add cooking time for you because it's constantly trying to like kind of fight the winter?
Once the residual heat got into the steel, it was good, but it did take about an extra hour and a half plus to get it to that point.
Oh wow.
And then once it had that residual heat, then it just cruised for the remainder of the time, which I was very surprised. And I'll have a lot of people say like, well, yeah, of course. I'm like, no. Like, this is custom built, not really knowing what we're doing, off of the dimensions of our cinder block unit with an aesthetical concept of something else, that I'm still surprised whether it's plus 35, minus 42, or in between, that it works as well as it does. Not to negate my ability, but again, I don't fully know what I'm doing when it comes to fabricating a cooker for airflow and everything else. So even when I'm making the smaller unit now, which is about 3 feet by 4 feet, because I wanted to have it so I could get it through a fence gate.
Okay, yeah.
Theoretically, it's the same design. Theoretically, it should work. There's a chance that it might not, because again, the airflow and management of everything might be different. So it won't be like walking into a familiar space with that cooker. It'll be learning a whole new cooker, even though it's technically the same thing, just smaller.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. The math on that is going to be insane for sure.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth all this last week with our fabricator, doing fine-tune adjustments of sizes to the point where they sent me the plans. I took some tape and I taped it on my kitchen floor to make sure that it was big enough to get at least a 50-pounder in there. Since those are the ones that we do, I wanted a smaller cooker to allow for a little less wear and tear on my body, but then also that we can get it through like a 3-foot gate as well, or an elevator. We've had requests to do it on the roof of apartment buildings.
Oh, wow.
But this guy is way too big.
Yeah, no, you're going to need a crane for that.
Yeah. So if I can create a smaller one and have it a little bit more versatile, one, I can expand the operation, and two, I mean, that would allow me to do at least 4 pigs on site too, so I can do larger events moving forward, or again, do a larger event with this one, the smaller one with the other one, and just have more diversity and the ability to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a tradition or kind of like superstition or something for starting up the pit, or something that you do while you're waiting for things to cook?
Ooh.
No. But that leads me to a different point. So there's not necessarily any superstition or anything that I do for luck. to get it started. But one thing that is different that I do, that I was a little self-conscious at the start, is I'll use charcoal briquettes. So a lot of people find that weird. Initially I was really self-conscious. One of the reasons I do that is for the contact lighting technique, or also known as the snake lighting technique. So with briquettes, as one's burning, if you put a fresh one on, due to the contact, it'll continue to light. So I've been able to find that consistency of temperature through that technique, where lump charcoal, I find I get a lot more fluctuations. And then as well, down south, they'll use real wood. So they'll use oak, or they'll use a multitude of fruit woods. But to have a burn barrel and to burn real wood, especially when you're a mobile catering unit, is quite hard, especially with the permitting from the city. So luckily on my second trip down there, I went to a more notable place in eastern North Carolina, and they were using briquettes too, and like everybody loves this place and it's super highly regarded. So that was a huge point of validation for me, where I didn't feel bad anymore about doing it with the briquettes. So I'll use, in the summer, I'll use about 4 charcoal chimneys just to get it all going. So that'll peak the heat and then it'll cruise. In the winter, I'll use 6. So even if it's not -40, but it's like -15, it still takes those additional 2 charcoal chimneys to get it up and to get it cruising.
I see. Wow, interesting. So then once you've cooked everything up, what's the next step here? So
once everything is cooked, I will either move it to the table over there, or if it's one pig, I'll kind of keep everything on here, keep it hot. But what I'll do is I'll end up having a hotel pan, the pig, and another hotel pan. I will separate the meat from the fat, from the bones, and from the skin. So I'll separate the meat, put it into the second pan, and then from there I will take that and I'll chop that up, and then I'll season that with the North Carolina vinegar sauce. So that can lead us over to here. So again, one of the important things with North Carolina barbecue is the chopping of it.
Okay.
And there's 2 cleavers, because it's a repetitive, proper chopping motion.
Oh, wow.
So I'll even have you pick up one of those. You can see how heavy they are.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's pretty heavy. That's like, oh my God, what is that, like 20 pounds? Am I over exaggerating? Is that 20 pounds?
I think they're around 6-ish.
Well, for me it's 20 pounds. Yeah. Oh
So
my gosh.
these are some important tools of the trade. The cleavers are really important. The heat gloves as well, so that we can pull apart the pig. And then again, if we're not doing it on there, we'll move it to a table like this, where we'll have the pan, the animal, and then the pan. We worked with Medium Rare in Calgary to do these aprons for us, which was,
Really
everything was
nice.
custom, from the thread design to the black denim, all the way to the crest. So they've been great to deal with. And we ordered these cleavers from the States, and then I have a few more in the box that I actually brought back from the States as well.
Oh, wow.
So if you go to the majority of places in North Carolina, you'll hear like almost like a chopping drum roll
Yes,
sound.
there's like a rhythm to it. It's kind of nuts.
Exactly. So the best place to, if you're looking for context of North Carolina barbecue, I would search Skylight Inn on YouTube, whether it's stuff they've posted or travelers have posted. Again, to me, that's the pinnacle of North Carolina whole hog barbecue. The family lineage there is massive. It's the Jones family. Even Sam, who I always refer to as like the Connor McDavid of North Carolina barbecue,
Nice.
has his own restaurant chain now, but he still works with his family organization. So it's really good. But to me, that Sam Jones barbecue or Skylight Inn are kind of like the gold standards for what is being done down there that I'm trying to emulate.
Very cool. Is there like a special thing about these? They're called cleavers.
Cleavers, yeah.
Cleavers. So like, what do you consider when you're like choosing out a cleaver?
For me, the reason that I've gone with these ones, and everybody always thinks that I've named them Dexter, which is really weird. The TV show obviously doesn't help, but it's actually Dexter Russell.
Okay.
So it's a name brand. So these name brands, which are the other ones that I have in the kit too, are the more conventional, traditional ones being used down there. So you could use an Asian style cleaver if you wanted, but again, the majority of people down there are using the Dexter Russell cleaver. So it's just, again, kind of the gold standard of what's being used down there, that when we're doing it up here, we just want to, again, stay in line with authenticity as much as we can.
Yeah, definitely.
Is
So,
one heavier than the other, like left hand, right hand? Or are they both
They're the same. So those two are the same. I actually started with these smaller ones.
oh my gosh, they're so cute.
So those are comparatively, if you want to feel the weight of those ones to those ones.
yeah, that's much more my speed.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like I'm doing curls for the girls, and it's just not happening, right? I'm not going to be able to do much, but this is like nice.
Well, and so the difference too is with those ones, if you have both of them, you have to add a little bit more force to actually chop everything. The heavier ones, you can kind of let the weight of the cleaver do it. But I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. When I bought those cleavers, I actually started doing like wrist workouts with them.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
again, you don't want to strain or sprain a wrist when you're doing it, because if you're out of commission, then
There's not a lot you can do after
yeah,
that
how are
point.
people going to serve?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like this is almost like a performance. Do you get people like crowding around you to watch?
Yeah, it's the, and that's one of the, outside of the flavor of it, the one thing I do, again, like about the North Carolina style barbecue is the spectacle of it, whether it's the cooker, the fact that it's splayed instead of on a spit, or the chopping. The other thing I really, really like is technically there is no sauce, or the sauce is a vinegar sauce, so it's apple cider vinegar and seasonings. So it's like salt, pepper, sugar, those kind of things. So theoretically, when you see the meat on the table, it looks naked, for lack of a better term. It just looks like the meat. So people will ask for sauce, or they'll try it and go, oh, I was looking for sauce, but then tried it and it was so good I didn't need the sauce. And truthfully, again, like when you're going down to Texas, that's how the brisket's supposed to be. When you're going to Tennessee, again, there's a dry rub or a wet rub on the ribs, but theoretically with proper barbecue, there shouldn't be any need for additional sauce because it is cooked properly. So even the seasoning of the pigs, we just do salt, pepper, and garlic powder, which I say is like a good steak. So I mean, food is supposed to be accessible, and it's supposed to be something that everybody theoretically can do. So when it comes to that, my philosophy is just cook to your palate. So I know people always find it funny, like, well done steak with ketchup. It's like, yeah, okay, that might be a little bit crazy, but as long as you're cooking, and as long as you're learning your palate and you're being mindful when you're going through that process of cooking it, and you know why you like it that way, then have a well done steak with ketchup. Because it's really about food at the end of the day, and the community and sharing that connectivity of people within the food. So if that's how you like your stuff, don't let Instagram tell you otherwise. It's more so just cook and share those times with family and friends and everything else. So, I mean, I refer to the pig as cooking a steak of just salt, pepper, garlic powder, but again, some people put barbecue sauce on a steak, some people put Montreal steak spice. There's theoretically nothing wrong with it. It's just the style that we do. So as long as people are eating and trying different things, truthfully, that's all I kind of care about.
I'm definitely biased. I like my food as like true to the meat as possible because I'm a little bit like that. But yeah, I can definitely understand why some people would be like, I just like my food with all these sauces.
Yeah. Hot dogs and KD, baked beans. I mean, everybody, like, I think, again, food should just be a point of connectivity and community rather than contention. And I think Instagram and cookbooks and food programming has deterred people from cooking a lot rather than motivating people to cook, because it seems more intimidating that it has to look a certain way or it has to be a certain way, when really at the end of the day it's about sitting at that table with the people who are around you, sharing what is in front of you. at least in my opinion.
No, definitely. I mean, I think that some of the most memorable meals I've had, it didn't really, like, if the food was amazing, then that was just a bonus. But being able to like hang out with my friends or family and joke around, share stories and laugh, that was probably like the highlight of anything. And that was more so what I remembered. But sometimes when food is so good, I'm gone. I'm lost. I'm absolutely lost. That's it. You can't get my attention. You can't ask me how it is, because it's either like I'm either like mid food or it's already gone.
Or it's gone.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that I love about barbecue too, is that like it is a centerpiece. So it is about building that community. It's about having people around. People are asking questions. People are wondering what it is. And then again, when it's served, it's people around picnic tables or long tables, and everybody, again, it's just bringing people together. So even when you're going down south, like the people in the lines are all talking to each other, and in Texas they've got beer, and it's really, again, about that like connectivity and community of what is going on rather than just the food itself, which personally is one of the reasons that I really, really enjoy it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm kind of jealous that you're going to Calgary. I'm like, take us with you, please, because like, I mean, like this just seems like such an event on its own in the first place, and it's even just right now as everything's set up. I'm almost like we're almost there. We're almost there, and all we have to do is get everyone down here, kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
I should have brought you guys a sample of pork.
Let's go next time.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, throughout your journey, has there ever been one time that really, really stood out to you, where you cooked something you were like, this is,
Oh yeah.
you know, and what was that moment like
For
for you?
or a critical point, I guess, for me in something like that was when I was doing it for family and friends and stags. A friend's dad asked me to cater their 75th cabin anniversary.
Oh wow.
So that was a larger pig. It was about 85, 90 pounds. It was on the cinder blocks, and that was the first time that I did a larger event, but it was also the first time that strangers asked me if I was a caterer and everything else. So even though it was a private function and for friends, at that point in time I didn't have Pitt County, but that was a pivotal point for me when people were asking who weren't friends if I was a caterer, for me to go, oh, maybe I should be. So then from that point, that's how Pitt County got started, is then I came up with the name, and then I built the website, and then it's just been 3 years of constant push and growth to just keep expanding and doing what we're doing. So it's nice because from the corporate events to personal events, the farm dinners, even Brewery and the Beast at the end of the month here in August on the 26th with Get Cooking at Grant McEwen. We're doing a whole hog cooking class.
Oh wow.
So it'll be for 18 to 20 people. We'll be doing oysters, fried okra, Pepsi and peanuts, cornbread, our red coleslaw, and then we'll be doing a smaller 40-pound pig and showing people the process of start to finish how to actually cook a whole hog. So it's been nice to be able to expand and showcase on what this all is and help educate people. Again, even you guys here today is drastically helping expand what barbecue is and people's knowledge of what it can be. So thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, like, I didn't know that like people like you existed. It's like I always think this after we talk to like a local. I would say like I call almost everyone we've kind of talked to kind of like specialists for themselves, right? Whether it's your hobby, whether it's your passion, is this something that you've like dived into and now you're kind of on your way to being like our go-to person? Like if I need to know something, I'm gonna ask this person, right? I'm not gonna really like waste time. I'm gonna be like, I need to know what is required so I can make this happen for myself, because some of us get hungry and some of us need to eat all the time. Even after, I guess we had actually met at a food event here in Edmonton held in Horlock Park called Heritage Days. We were judging some food, and even after that I thought, I'm stuffed, I'm gonna go into a food coma. No, I went home and ate more because I was like, well, now I need this and now we need that. And I had smuggled, not really smuggled, but like I like brought leftovers, as I do because I'm the leftover queen. And I was snacking on those afterwards because I can't not re-eat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you eat something so good, you have to have it again.
You want to go back for it.
Yes, every single time. So I don't do the microwave. I'll put it in the pan if I have to, just to warm it up just enough to bring it back to life for me, you know? So
That's good though.
I
mean,
just
so
have
many
to.
people are scared by leftovers, but they can be a good thing. And to your point too, of being a resource, I'm the person who manages the Pitt County socials. So if anybody is out there, viewer-wise, otherwise, that has a question in the future, or just if you're planning on going somewhere in the States for barbecue, even if it's not North Carolina, definitely reach out. I've spent a lot of time reading books, doing research. I've got a lot of connections and friends in the southern states, and I mean, I'm more than happy to help share kind of the knowledge that I've been able to put together over the few years. So if you're going down there for work or you want to do a barbecue tour, just reach out and I can give you a short list or a long list of places to go try, and even potential routes of where to go.
So then, throwing a question your way, what was one of the most valuable lessons that you learned
Ooh.
on this journey?
For me, I think one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned from the pitmasters down there and the barbecue establishments down there is just openness. Openness and community, where you'll even get people down there who are, again, like I said earlier, very open book outside of maybe some aspects of their recipe, because the truth of it is we all just want to expand this industry, and it is a competitive industry, but it does take a lot of time, from waking up at 3 in the morning or 2:30 and cooking all day. That a lot of our philosophy, or at least a lot of the philosophy down there that I've been able to emulate, is if you're willing to put the work in, then by all means come and do it. So you'll have places down there being like, yeah, well, of course we'll share or showcase what we're doing. As if you want to open a place around the corner, like, you have all the right to do it, but you've got to put the hard work into actually doing it. So I've always said too, if somebody came up in Edmonton and they were a North Carolina barbecue company, a lot of people would see that as competition, which truly it would be, but as long as the person was authentic and representing the style of barbecue, I would help them out as much as I could, because I mean, the more the merrier. We're building the community, and the more people that know about authentic barbecue and regionality of barbecue, again, we all win. I'm a huge rising tide person, a huge we're all better together person, and that's just one thing, that one lesson that's always reinforced every time I go down there, whether it's Southern hospitality or being shown restaurants or like inside the playbooks per se. It's just something that's always refreshing, that you go down there and you come back here and you're like, okay, yeah, like who wants to know, how can I help?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that class that you're talking about at Grant MacEwan, right?
Yeah.
That sounds so interesting. How do you generally run your classes, and like how are they available? Are they to the public, or is it more so the students themselves?
No, they're public because it's Get Cooking. So their facility is at Grant MacEwan, but they're separate from Grant MacEwan.
Okay.
So with that, Catherine puts on classes, whether it's French cooking or alternative-wise. So we're one of her newer instructors. Mm-hmm. So that course, everybody will come. We'll try and get another one off before the winter, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. It might be more Southern cooking. But for that one, people will come. I'll go over the intro of everything. I'll probably have the pig on there a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. And then in between nursing coals, we'll kind of bounce between shucking and serving oysters, and then going back and more pig work, and then frying the okra, and then back more pig work, and then making the cornbread in the cast iron pan on the barbecue, mm-hmm. and then going back. That everything, by the end of the 3.5, 4 hours, there'll be snacks amongst it, but then there'll be a nice big full meal at the end.
These are all my favorite words, all put together. Okra is probably one of my favorite, like, green long vegetables, and these are all my favorite words. Anyways, can you just maybe remind people, is it a full class right now, or are there still spots available?
I think there's a few spots left. Mm-hmm. And again, we can look at, if there's abundance, we can look at doing another course, or we can open it up for a few more people. So that one would be getcooking.com on just Google. You can find the information on our socials as well, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or our website, and then you can just register through them. Hopefully we'll have another pop-up in September, October as well. So then that would be on our socials. So the best way to follow with what we're doing is Pitt County BBQ on Instagram. That's the one that we update the most. But whether it's that or our website, pittcountybarbq.com, or on our Facebook, again, I'm the one managing all the socials. So if you send a message, I'll be the one answering, and would be more than happy to help show when more pop-ups or classes are coming, or just, again, even general information on barbecue. So.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to seeing you again, and hopefully we'll sneak into a class, because you know your girl loves a good shucked oyster. So thank you so much, Peter, for chatting with us and sharing all of this information with us and giving us a little tour of who you are and what you do. So it's been wonderful chatting with you. This is R from RNG in the 780, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.